The Browns didn't just draft a quarterback, they lit a fuse. And now, Shedeur Sanders has one shot to prove the NFL dead wrong. This isn't hype. This is history in motion. Let's rock.
Shedeur Sanders was a big name selected by the Browns in this year's draft. He's now at training camp where he'll be competing in a crowded quarterback room, right? They've also got Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and another rookie, Gabriel, on their roster. Shedeur's hoping he can stand out this summer to earn the starting job. Okay, Mike T, is Shedeur the AFC North quarterback who needs to ball out the most this season?
Absolutely. If I was the GM of the Browns, I would sit him down and say, Shedeur, here's the answers to the test. You have one season to prove to us that you're the quarterback of the future. We have 2 first-round picks next year. Go play well so we don't have to draft a quarterback. I think he's a better prospect than Gabriel. I would trade Kenny Pickett.
Mike T, how much pressure is that on a 5th rounder? Then?
Yeah, why should he only have one season when other
because you have 2 first-round picks. Because Molly, he has they have 2 first-round picks. Next year's draft is loaded with quarterbacks. So to me, your best chance to start is right now.
Got you.
Every Shedeur Sanders fan is talking about it. Every rival is nervous. And if you miss this, you're missing history being made in real time. And just like that, the Cleveland Browns lit the match. One of the most polarizing moves of the NFL draft wasn't in the first round. It wasn't even on day 2. It came in the 5th when the Browns picked Shedeur Sanders and silently handed him the weight of a franchise on fire. Let's be clear. This isn't just about a quarterback battle. This is about legacy. This is about pressure. This is about being Deion Sanders' son in a league that doesn't give a damn who your father is. If you can't win games, in a training camp locker room filled with journeymen and whispers, Shedeur isn't just fighting for a job. He's fighting to prove he's more than a name, more than a college highlight reel, more than a social media story. He's fighting to stay in Cleveland. They're not exactly making it easy. With Joe Flacco still hanging around, Kenny Pickett fighting for his second wind, and another rookie Gabriel lurking in the shadows, the Browns have quietly thrown Shedeur into the deepest quarterback pit in the league. And here's the twist. Cleveland owns not 1, but 2 first-round picks in next year's QB-loaded draft. Translation. If Shedeur doesn't explode this season, if he doesn't look like the second coming of Michael Penix Jr. or Bo Nix, they're going to move on. They won't blink. They'll grab the next big name and leave Shedeur's future collecting dust on the bench. But what happened next? Nobody saw it coming, not even the critics. Because when Mike Tannenbaum, the former GM, says if he were running the Browns, he'd sit Shedeur down and tell him flat out, here's the answers to the test. Go play well, or we're drafting your replacement. You know this isn't your average rookie journey. No one's rolling out the red carpet for Shedeur. He's not being asked to compete, he's being told to dominate as a 5th rounder. And that's where the insanity begins. Let's rewind. Most 5th round picks, they're hoping to make the 53-man roster, maybe become a backup, a clipboard holder. Shedeur, he's being told to carry a franchise that hasn't had a real QB identity since, Bernie Kosar. But Mike T isn't alone. He's not the only one putting pressure on this kid. Stephen A. Smith jumps in, and even though he doesn't say it outright, the tone is loud and clear. This isn't just about talent. It's about trust. It's about showing up to that facility every single day and making veterans believe in you. You played well at Colorado, Stephen A. says. Take this job not for today, but for the next 5 years. Let that sow in. 5 years, 1 training camp, 1 preseason, 1 shot to earn 5 years of job security. That's the weight Shedeur is walking into. But is it fair? Ryan Clark doesn't think so. And honestly, he's right. He says that pressure on a 5th-round quarterback, it's not fair. And here's where things get real. Clark's not just talking about competition. He's talking about perception, about the way Shedeur will be looked at, judged, and picked apart. He says flat out, the expectations of him are not high. But if he becomes the starter, he's already exceeded everything. And that's true. Except it's not. Because Shedeur Sanders isn't just another 5th rounder. Here's the part that stunned even the veteran-ish Deion's son. That alone makes him different. The eyeballs, the media, the spotlight, it's already on him before he throws a single pass. There are no quiet rookie reps, no anonymity. Every interception, every sack, every throw behind the receiver will be followed by a chorus of C. That's why he wasn't a 1st rounder. So let's stop pretending this is a normal development curve. The NFL isn't grading him fairly. It's grading him against his last name. And that means any slip is magnified and every success is expected. Ryan Clark nails it again when he says, is Shedeur a starter, a backup, a journeyman? That's what the league is trying to figure out. but it's also what the fans, the G-Miz, and the media are asking Dash loudly. And here comes the most chilling part.
The person who actually has a gripe to say are they not set up for success is Dylan Gabriel. Because you draft me in the 3rd round and then you draft
he had to be
the biggest
so
name
salty.
quarterback in the draft 2 rounds later. But this is the NFL. You earn jobs, you keep jobs. And what balling out is for Shedeur is not the same as a ball out for Lamar Jackson and not the same a ball out for Joe Burrow. But there's still pressure on everybody to make sure that at the end of the year, you're in a better situation than you were.
And honestly, Mike T, if a general manager is looking at Shedeur Sanders like that, or to say, okay, you have to go out and prove to me we don't need to use one of these draft picks next year, Shedeur Sanders has to play like a 1st rounder and not like he can't play like Caleb Williams played last year. Shedeur Sanders is going to have to give you Michael Penix Jr. He's going to have to give you Bo Nix so you can see a future, because if you do draft high enough and something is tantalizing enough at the top of that draft, you'll still move on from him if he gives you adequate play. And we are saying all of this with the expectation that he actually starts at some.
That's right. If Shedeur wants to avoid being replaced in 2026, he can't just be decent. He has to ball out like a 1st rounder. He has to give Cleveland no choice. Not just show flashes dominate because the Browns have options. If Jacksonville misses the playoffs, Cleveland could be sitting on a top 10 pick. And with next year's draft class loaded at quarterback, you can bet the front office is watching every Shedeur snap like a hawk. Drafting Shedeur wasn't a fluke. It was a test, a challenge, a calculated move. And the Browns are watching too. See if he bends or breaks. Now here's where it gets controversial. Is Cleveland setting Shedeur up to fail? You've got a 3rd rounder in Dylan Gabriel and a 5th rounder in Shedeur in the same room. You draft one, then you draft the other. Back to back. What are you really saying? According to Ryan Clark, if anyone should feel slighted, it's Gabriel. But if you're Shedeur, you can't even worry about that. Because you're not just trying to win a job, you're trying to rewrite how 5th rounders are seen in this league. But champions aren't made in comfort. What Shedeur did next proved exactly that. Look at Brock Purdy. Nobody thought he'd be anything more than a backup. Last pick of the draft. Now he's the face of a Super Bowl contender. Why not Shedeur? That's what Mike T points out. There's opportunity, he says. Nothing's guaranteed. But that's the league. And he's right. Shedeur has no promises, no leash, no safety net. But he does have a chance. And let me tell you, when Ryan Clark says, what balling out is for Shedeur is not the same as for Lamar or Joe Burrow, he's speaking gospel. Because Lamar and Burrow were given room to grow, to fail, to learn. Shedeur, he has to be perfect from day one. Because if he's not, the league will say, told you so. Hook 6. You're about to hear the moment that had fans, players, even rivals on their feet. And yet despite it all, there's this quiet confidence in how Shedeur carries himself. No panic, no self-doubt, just that same fire he had at Colorado. The chip, the poise, the clutch gene. You could hear it in every ESPN voice. They're nervous for him, but they're also intrigued. Because if he gets the starting job, and he's going to shock people. He's going to go out there and silence the noise. Not by being flashy, but by being solid, smart, consistent, dangerous. Let this next moment sink in, because it might just define the future of the Browns. And Shedeur Sanders himself. This is more than football. This is identity. This is proving you belong in a league that didn't believe in you enough to draft you earlier. The question isn't whether Shedeur can make the roster. The question is, what happens when he does more than that? What happens when he wins the locker room? What happens when he stares down the draft board and says, you won't need those 1st-round picks. I'm already here. And guess what? That moment's coming. Because when everyone expects you to crumble and you rise, that's not just a career moment. That's history. You see, what separates Shedeur Sanders isn't just his arm. It's not even his pedigree. It's the way he processes pressure. Because every time a headline screams 5th-round pick, he hears prove them wrong. Every time analysts compare him to players who've had years to develop, Shedeur reminds himself he's been under the spotlight his whole life. Since high school, since Colorado, since primetime walked onto that Buffalo's field and said, this is my son. And now, this is his league. Let's go back to that ESPN discussion for a moment. Ryan Clark made something crystal clear. When you're a late-round draft pick, you're not just fighting opponents, you're fighting perception. You're not just playing games, you're battling narratives. And for Shedeur, the narrative has never been neutral. He's either the next breakout star or the most overhyped college QB since Johnny Manziel. There's no middle ground. But you want to talk about unfair? Here's what's really unfair. Being asked to play like a first-rounder just to keep your spot, while still learning the playbook. Mike T laid it out. Cleveland has to first-round picks next year. If they're even slightly tempted by someone like Quinn Ewers, Yalen Milroe, or Cam Ward, they'll use it. That's the cold, hard business of the league. So yeah, Shedeur has to ball like Bo Nix. He's got to deliver like Michael Penix Jr. He has to look like a long-term franchise QB, while being treated like a disposable rookie. That's pressure. But here's the twist. He's built for it. You want to know what separates the greats? It's what they do when nobody believes they belong. And that's the stage Shedeur's walking onto this season. It's not about silencing critics anymore, it's about making them irrelevant. Look at how Ryan Clark puts it. The reality of being a fifth rounder. No team builds a system around you. There's no plan for your success. You have to go hunt. Let's pause there, go hunt. That's what Shedeur does best. He doesn't wait for opportunities to come to him. He takes them. And Boulder, he didn't walk into a perfect system. He built his resume under one of the most chaotic college football media storms in history. Every mistake was a headline. Every win came with an asterisk from critics. And yet he delivered. So, when people say he's not set up to succeed, maybe that's true. But maybe it doesn't matter. Because Shedeur isn't here for setup. He's here for takeover. You think the Browns were just experimenting with that draft pick? No, this is chess. And Shedeur's already thinking 5 moves ahead. Let's break this down deeper. You've got Kenny Pickett in that QB room, a former first-rounder who never found consistency. You've got Joe Flacco, veteran, Super Bowl MVP, but a bridge. And you've got Dylan Gabriel, an exciting third-rounder, but still adjusting to NFL speed. And then you've got Shedeur, a guy who understands timing, who's cool in the pocket, who reads defenses better than people realize, a guy whose dad literally wrote the playbook on confidence under pressure. You can't measure that in combines or pre-draft workouts. You can only measure it when it's third and long, the crowd's roaring, and the season's on the line. That's when Shedeur will shine, because this isn't just a QB competition, it's a mental war. And Shedeur, he's got the calmest trigger finger in the room. But let's not sugarcoat it, the pressure is immense. Because every bad throw, every sack, that's going to be used as ammo. And Shedeur knows it. He throws one pick, and critics will say, see, 5th round talent. He misses one check down. And some analysts will tweet, this is why he wasn't a day one guy. But that's the beautiful thing about Shedeur Sanders. He plays better when they doubt him. We saw it at Colorado. When they said he couldn't hang in Power 5, he torched defenses. When they mocked his confidence, he put up for 100 yards and still made time to flash the wristwatch. He's not here to survive. He's here to dominate. And now, he gets a shot to do it in the NFL's most rugged division, the AFC North. Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders, you bet. Because if Shedeur cracks this lineup, if he makes even one start, he's not going back to the bench. That's what people aren't ready for. This isn't about beating out Kenny Pickett. This isn't about getting a few preseason snaps. This is about seizing a franchise. And when Ryan Clark says the Browns will still move on if something tantalizing enough is sitting at the top of next year's draft, he's not lying. That's the cold truth. Even if Shedeur plays well, he might still be replaced. But that's the difference between Shedeur and everyone else. He's not playing for a contract. He's playing to rewrite his story. They gave him 1 year. He's about to make it unforgettable. Remember, this when you draft a quarterback in the 5th round, you're not expecting to build around him. You're expecting him to hold a clipboard and learn quietly. But Shedeur, he's not staying quiet. He's here to prove something for every underdog, every overlooked talent, every kid who's been told they're not enough. That's what Stephen A. picked up on during that ESPN segment. That's what Ryan Clark saw too. Because when Shedeur suits up in Cleveland brown and orange, that jersey isn't just cloth. It's armor. It's proof. Proof that he's made it this far and he's not going anywhere. This isn't about stats anymore. This is about presence. And when Shedeur enters the huddle, he brings more than a play call, he brings belief. Belief that someone can shatter the narrative. Belief that pressure isn't a prison, it's a privilege. And belief that one man, with one opportunity, can still change everything. So yeah, the Browns may have set him up to fail. But what if he turns it into a masterpiece? What if the very chaos they threw at him becomes the reason he thrives? Because when the smoke clears, win or lose, everyone will remember the name Shedeur Sanders. Not just because he's Deion's son. Not just because of Colorado, but because he walked into the NFL, looked pressure in the eye, and didn't blink. Because when the critics gave him 1 season, He gave them a reason to shut up. Because when the Browns played chess with his career, he flipped the board. And because sometimes, the underdog doesn't just bite dots sometimes. The underdog builds a dynasty. If you believe Shedeur Sanders is about to flip the script in Cleveland, if you're riding with the underdog, if you know greatness comes when pressure meets preparation, then hit that like button, smash that subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the rise of the most talked about rookie in the NFL. Because this story, it's just getting started. Shedeur Sanders versus the world. Let's ride.